There is a difference between a man who forgets to file the marriage paperwork and a man who instructs his best friend not to. One is carelessness. The other is architecture. Tonight, a woman spent 6 years inside a building that was never meant to have her name on the deed. When Vincent rested his hand on another woman's waist and ordered Arabella to make her coffee, all 36 people in the banquet hall fell dead silent. The self-playing piano kept going. A waiter froze by the sofa, the champagne on his tray trembling slightly. A few people chatting by the floor-to-ceiling windows turned their heads, their eyes darting from Vincent to Arabella before quickly dropping to the floor. Nobody wanted to miss this. Arabella stood in the doorway, her midnight blue evening gown still carrying the chill of the night air. An hour ago, Vincent had called to say a last-minute meeting meant he couldn't pick her up, telling her to take the driver instead. He hadn't mentioned he'd be bringing a +1. The woman was in a pearl-white cocktail dress, her fingers naturally looped through Vincent's arm. Her light blonde hair tumbled over her shoulders. Her smile was innocent, but her gaze lingered on Arabella's wedding band for 2 seconds too long. Lucas, the birthday boy, stood nearby holding a drink, his smile frozen stiff. Arabella, you made it. He cleared his throat. I was just about to call you. Traffic was a bit heavy. Arabella handed her clutch to a waiter, her eyes dropping to the hand resting on Vincent's waist. The woman immediately let go. Vincent offered no explanation. He simply picked up a glass from the table and tipped his chin at Arabella. Zoe, this is Arabella. Zoe's smile faltered for a split second. So you are Arabella. She shot Vincent a glance. He's told me so much about you, has he? Arabella walked up to them. What did he say? Zoe pinched the side of her dress, but Vincent beat her to it. It is Lucas's birthday. Let's not do an interrogation here. Arabella looked at him. He was wearing a silver-gray tie she hadn't seen before and new cufflinks. The pearls on Zoe's earlobes matched those cufflinks perfectly, as if they'd been picked out by the same person. Arabella averted her eyes. I only asked one question. Lucas immediately squeezed between them. All right, let's get a drink, Arabella. I had them prep your usual sparkling water. Thanks. Zoe picked up a coffee cup from the table, took a sip, and frowned slightly. It is a bit bitter. Vincent glanced at her. Don't you always drink it black? I do, but not like this. Zoe smiled and turned to Arabella. Vincent says you make amazing Americanos. He actually said he only drinks yours. The room was so quiet you could hear ice clinking against glass. Arabella's thumb paused on the edge of her ring. Vincent had actually talked to her about this. He had told Zoe what time Arabella woke up every morning, how she ground his coffee beans, and how she memorized his preferred roast levels for different seasons. Intimate details Arabella thought belonged exclusively to their shared life were now just talking points he used to entertain another woman. Zoe didn't seem to notice the shift in the room. She held up her empty cup with a smile. Could I trouble you to let me try some tonight? I am honestly so curious. Lucas coughed loudly. My chef can make it. Vincent shot him a look. If she wants it, let Arabella make it. Lucas's mouth twitched. Vincent ignored him, lifting his chin toward Arabella. The espresso machine is in the pantry. Don't keep everyone waiting. Someone looked down to adjust their cuffs. Someone picked up a glass, pretending to study the bubbles. A few had already discreetly pulled out their phones. Arabella stared at Vincent for 2 seconds. The faintest trace of a smirk played on his lips, like he was waiting for her to throw a tantrum or waiting for her to submit. Suddenly, She smiled too. Of course, Zoe breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you, double espresso black. Got it. Arabella turned on her heel and headed for the pantry. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor. One deliberate step after another. The chatter behind her did not resume. In the pantry, an older housekeeper had already turned on the espresso machine. She set the filter in place and whispered, "Ma'am, which beans should I use?" Arabella walked right past her. None of them. The housekeeper froze. Arabella pushed open the door on the other side of the pantry, cutting through the brightly lit prep kitchen. A chef was transferring freshly baked pastries onto a silver platter. Seeing her, he quickly stepped aside. "Where is the garden exit?" The chef pointed down the hall. "Take a right, past the storage room." "Thank you." She pushed open the back door. The damp night wind hit her face, her dress clinging to her calves. In the distance, the pool glowed a deep, ghostly blue. The music from the banquet hall drifted through the glass, sounding like it came from another world. She walked down the garden path. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. Once, twice, 3 times. Arabella didn't take it out. The side gate of the estate was far from the main house. Halfway there, her heels had already blistered the backs of her ankles. She stopped under an oak tree, bent down to take off her stilettos, and hooked the straps over her fingers. Tiny pebbles dug into the soles of her feet. She kept walking. By the time she reached the community gates, an Uber was idling by the curb. The driver rolled down his window, looking at the heels in her hand, then at the gated mansions behind her. "Bad wedding?" Arabella opened the back door. "Wrong groom," the driver paused, then let out a laugh. "Best line I've heard all night." The door shut. Her phone buzzed again. Vincent's name flashed on the screen. Arabella answered. "Where did you go?" His voice was low. "Zoe is still waiting for her coffee." Arabella watched the streetlights blur past the window. Then she might be waiting a long time. "Arabella, the coffee beans are at your friend's house, and so is the machine. I am sure 2 grown adults can figure it out." Silence on the other end for 2 seconds. "Come back." Number, don't throw a fit over something so trivial. "I am not throwing a fit." She rested her blistered heel on her other foot, a bead of blood slowly sliding down her skin. "I am already on my way home." Vincent scoffed. "Wait for me when you get back. You'd better not come back too late." "Scared now?" Number, Arabella looked at her ring. "I am just worried that when you get back, the person you want to see won't be there." She hung up and powered off her phone. The driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Do you need me to swing by a clinic for your feet?" "A 24-hour convenience store first, please." 10 minutes later, Arabella got back into the car carrying a pair of cheap flats and a box of Band-Aids. She left her heels by the trash can outside the store. When she got home, Vincent still wasn't back. The house had 5 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, a climate-controlled wine cellar, and an indoor pool no one ever actually used. Arabella walked into the master bedroom and opened the closet. Vincent's clothes took up 3 entire walls. Her clothes were shoved into the corner, more than half of them designer gowns picked out by his stylists. She took down her jeans, sweaters, and 2 old jackets, neatly folding them into a suitcase. She didn't touch a single sequined gown. In the vanity drawer lay the jewelry Vincent had gifted her. Arabella took out the silver necklace her grandmother had left her, and left everything else exactly where it was. Finally, she walked into the small room at the end of the hall. It was the nursery she had originally prepared for her son. Wesley, the walls were painted a soft green. A little bare nightlight sat by the bed. Pajamas she had bought ahead of time still hung in the closet with the tags on. Wesley had never slept a single night in this room. Arabella stood in the doorway, took a dinosaur storybook off the shelf, and placed it right at the top of her suitcase. By 1 a.m., both suitcases were packed. Vincent hadn't come home. He hadn't even called again. Arabella washed her makeup off and sat leaning against the headboard all night. As soon as the sun came up, she changed her clothes and drove to the Mercer family's main estate. Today was supposed to be her day with Wesley. The estate butler was silent on the phone for a long time. Miss Rowan, Mr. Mercer came over early this morning and took the young master. Arabella gripped the steering wheel. Where did they go? A campground. He said they wouldn't be back tonight either. Send me the address. Sir gave strict orders not to tell you. Arabella's fingers tightened, her nails digging into the leather of the steering wheel. Let me speak to Wesley. He should have his smartwatch on him. After hanging up, she immediately dialed Wesley's number. It rang 5 times before the child's sweet voice came through. Mommy, it is me. Arabella pulled the car over. What are you doing? Daddy's setting up a tent. We're going to roast marshmallows tonight. Vincent's muffled voice could be heard in the background. Arabella softened her tone. Today was supposed to be our day together. Daddy said you were being disobedient, so we have to skip a turn. The child earnestly repeated the adult's words. He said you need a time out. Arabella's lips parted. Weasley, this isn't your fault, and Mommy isn't abandoning you. Daddy's calling me. I gotta go. Wait, the line went dead. The screen went black. Arabella sat in the car, her palm pressing hard against her phone. A few seconds later, she opened her browser and typed in family law attorney. The first call went unanswered. The second went straight to voicemail. The third rang twice before a sharp, awake female voice answered, Harrison Family Law. Arabella looked up, meeting her own eyes in the rearview mirror. Her eyeliner was smudged, her heel was patched with a cheap Band-Aid, and the ring on her finger still caught the morning light. She took off the ring and dropped it into the center console. I need to verify a temporary care authorization. Is the child currently safe? Yes. Is the other parent denying you access? He is using visitation as a punishment. The sound of typing echoed over the line. Send me every document you've ever signed. I can see you today at 10 a.m. Okay, the call ended. Immediately, her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. Arabella looked down. This is Zoe. Vincent told me you two split up 2 years ago. A second text popped up. I am so sorry about last night. A third text contained a screenshot under Vincent's profile picture. In his own words, she won't leave. She can't bear to leave her son. Arabella stared at that sentence. A few seconds later, she forwarded the screenshot to the lawyer and started the car. A fourth message lit up the screen. I have more, including why he always refused to finalize your marriage license. Arabella didn't reply to Zoe immediately. She parked in the garage under the law firm. Her phone buzzed twice more. In the first screenshot, Vincent told Zoe that he and Arabella only had a legally non-binding wedding ceremony to appease a dying relative. In the second screenshot, Zoe asked why they still lived together. Vincent had replied with a single sentence, she has nowhere else to go. Arabella stared at the screen until it went dark. On the passenger seat sat 2 suitcases. They contained everything that truly belonged to her after 6 years of living in that house. She grabbed her folder and got out of the car. Miss Harrison was already waiting in her office. The lawyer wore a dark gray suit, her bob cut perfectly styled. She didn't press Arabella for her emotional backstory. Instead, she laid out all the documents in chronological order. Temporary care authorizations, the child's medical records, weekly visitation schedules, Texts from Vincent canceling visits at the last minute. Arabella had saved them on her phone for 2 years. Every time Vincent texted "can't do this week," she would take a screenshot, never imagining they would one day become evidence. Harrison flipped to the last page. This authorization only allows the child's grandmother to handle medical and school affairs on his behalf. It does not grant her custody. Arabella sat up a little straighter. Vincent always said I signed the papers myself, that if I upset him, he could make Wesley live there forever. He is intimidating you. Harrison slid the papers back. You never finalized your marriage registration, but he is legally the child's father. You both have joint parental rights until a court makes a formal arrangement. He has no right to use visitation as a reward or punishment. Arabella's finger traced the edge of the paper. If I file for a formal arrangement, will he hide the child? If there is a flight risk, we can file for an emergency order. His family has a lot of money. Harrison looked up at her. Money can buy more expensive lawyers. It doesn't buy a father the right to arbitrarily punish the other parent. Arabella said nothing. Outside the window, a street sweeper drove slowly by, the reflection of her pale face catching in the glass. 6 years ago, when she first walked into the Mercer family's dining room, Vincent had been sitting in front of a floor-to-ceiling window just like this one. Her grandmother had just finished a round of chemo. The old woman was skin and bones, but she held Arabella's hand in a vice grip. I just want to see someone take care of you. At the other end of the table, Vincent's grandfather sighed. The Rowans helped us in the past. As long as Arabella is willing, she will always be a part of the Mercer family. Vincent leaned back in his chair, not looking at anyone. Arabella refused on the spot. I don't need to get married, Grandma. I can take care of myself. Her grandmother turned her head to cough, leaving a faint streak of pink on a white handkerchief. Nobody in the dining room spoke. A few minutes later, Vincent pushed a glass of water toward the old woman. I accept. Arabella's head snapped toward him. He looked perfectly calm, as if he had just agreed to a standard business merger. We can hold the wedding as soon as possible. Later, she asked him why he agreed. Vincent was standing in his company's underground garage, opening the car door for her, his hand shielding the roof so she wouldn't bump her head. Because you looked like you were about to cry. His voice had been so soft back then. For the first year after the wedding, he really was gentle. When Arabella first joined his company, she was inexperienced and got publicly reprimanded by a department head during a meeting. Vincent didn't defend her in front of everyone, but the next day, a corrected process flowchart appeared on her desk. Follow this next time. After work, he'd wait for her by the elevators. Colleagues walking by would smile and ask why he hadn't left yet. Vincent would take Arabella's hand. Waiting for my wife. Those words made her hold onto his hand for the rest of the night. When her grandmother was hospitalized, he arranged the best doctors, transportation, and round-the-clock care. In her final moment of clarity, her grandmother saw Vincent draping a coat over Arabella's shoulders and finally smiled. That was the day Arabella started believing this relationship, born out of a family obligation, could actually become a real marriage. When she got pregnant, Vincent told her to quit her job. You've been getting dizzy a lot lately. He closed her laptop. The company isn't going to go under if it is missing one coordinator. I don't want to be in a meeting worrying about whether you've passed out in the bathroom. Arabella smiled and agreed. The day her resignation went through, she held her hospital checkup report and asked him when they were going to file the marriage license. Vincent took off his suit jacket, pausing. Let's talk about it after the baby is born. Why, my mother wants to play it safe. Safe from what? Vincent hung up his jacket and turned around. Arabella, don't turn everything into an argument. It was the first time he had ever spoken to her in that tone. As her due date approached, he started coming home later and later. Arabella would wake up in the middle of the night to find his side of the bed cold. The day she went into labor, she waited in the hospital for over 10 hours. When the nurse asked for the fourth time when the baby's father was arriving, Arabella could only shake her head. Vincent showed up at dawn, his shirt visibly wrinkled, his phone still gripped in his hand. He leaned down and kissed her sweat-drenched forehead. Meetings ran late. Arabella grabbed his cuff. Don't go. Vincent glanced at his lit-up screen, but eventually placed his phone face down on the table, but less than a month after Wesley was born. Arabella's grandmother passed away. The day of the funeral, Arabella could barely stand without support. Margaret, Vincent's mother, took the baby. You can't even take care of yourself right now. She tucked the blanket tightly around Wesley. He'll stay with me for now. We can talk when you've recovered. Arabella chased her to the door, her legs giving out, her knees hitting the stone steps hard. Vincent reached out and caught her. She grabbed his arm desperately. Let Wesley stay. My mother is right. I am his mother. Then focus on getting your health back first. The car door slammed shut in her face. From then on, for now dragged on for years. At first, it was because she needed to heal. Then, it was because the nannies at the main estate were more professional. Later, it was because Wesley was already used to living there, and it wouldn't be good to disrupt his environment. Every time, Vincent had a perfectly reasonable excuse, until one Sunday, when Arabella canceled a dinner party because she had a fever. Vincent stood in the bedroom doorway, fastening his cufflinks. If you don't go tonight, you don't need to go see Wesley tomorrow. Arabella threw off the covers and got out of bed. I am going. She was burning up and weak on her feet, but she put on a gown and followed him out the door. From that moment on, Vincent had found his ultimate leverage. If she refused a banquet, a dinner, or even a last-minute demand to make him coffee, her time with Wesley would be delayed. Harrison tapped the desk. Arabella snapped back to reality. Did Vincent ever explicitly admit in writing that he was using the child to force your compliance? He wouldn't leave anything that direct. That is fine. The pattern of cancellations, the correlating timelines, and the screenshots you received today are enough to establish a pattern. Arabella opened the third screenshot from Zoe. It was a text thread from 2 weeks ago. Zoe asked, "Why don't you just officially end things?" Vincent replied, "No need." Arabella won't leave. There was a follow-up text. As long as Wesley is here, she'll always come back. Harrison read it and set the phone down. Back up the original conversations. Will Zoe get into trouble? As long as the content is authentic, she is merely providing evidence. Arabella finally replied to Zoe, "Thank you. When did you find out he never filed the marriage license?" The reply was almost instant, after last night. Immediately after, Zoe sent a voice note. Her voice lacked the bubbly confidence from the party. He kept telling me you two split up 2 years ago, that you only lived together for the kids' sake. He said you couldn't accept reality and kept using the wife card to interfere in his life. The sound of a car door shutting echoed in the background. Yesterday, I asked him why you were still wearing the ring. He said you just couldn't let go of the Mercer lifestyle. A pause. Arabella, I am not trying to play the innocent victim here. I knew he lived with you, and I still dated him, but I swear I didn't know you guys never actually broke up. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He lied to me too. Arabella held down the record button. What happened at the party wasn't your fault. You didn't ask me to make coffee, and you weren't the one who decided to humiliate me. She released the button. Message sent. Harrison looked at her. You don't hate her. I don't have the time or energy to shoulder Vincent's blame for him. A ghost of a smile touched the lawyer's lips. Good, keep that mindset. She pulled out a fresh document. This is an emergency petition for a temporary custody schedule. We are requesting fixed visitation times, mandatory video calls, and a court order prohibiting either party from using the child as a bargaining chip. Arabella flipped to the last page. Will I get to see Wesley today? I'll serve his lawyer with formal notice first. If he continues to deny access, document it. He doesn't know I have a lawyer yet. He is about to. Arabella gripped the pen. The moment her signature hit the paper, her phone rang. Vincent's name flashed on the screen. This time, she answered. Where are you? His voice was ice. At a law firm. Dead silence on the other end. A few seconds later, Vincent let out a dark laugh. You got a lawyer over what happened last night. It is not about last night. Arabella handed the signed document to Harrison. It is about Wesley. Vincent's breath hitched. What are you doing, establishing a formal visitation and custody arrangement? Who put you up to this? Nobody needs to teach a mother how to see her own child. Arabella, you'd better not blow this out of proportion. Then stop canceling my time. Vincent lowered his voice. Do you really think a judge will find you fit to care for a child? You have no job. You are emotionally unstable. And you ran away from home. Arabella looked out the window. The sun hit the roof of her car in the parking lot. 2 suitcases sat quietly in the passenger seat. My doctor can testify I've fully recovered. My bank account can cover my living expenses, and I didn't run away from home. She paused. Because that place was never my home. The screech of a chair being shoved back echoed through the phone. Come back right now. We'll talk face to face. Number Arabella. And one more thing. Her voice remained perfectly level. From today on, unless it is about Wesley, do not contact me. Are you breaking up with me? Vincent sounded like he had just heard a ridiculous joke. We never filed the marriage paperwork. We don't need a divorce. And so, we're done. The line went so quiet all she could hear was the faint static of the connection. Then Vincent spoke slowly. You can't bear to leave Wesley. I can't, you are right. Arabella placed her hand flat on the petition. Which is why I am going to see him the right way. You have nothing without me. She glanced at the keys to her car. I have a car. I have savings. I have a lawyer. And I have a hotel room booked for tonight. Does any of that give you a home? Did you ever give me one? The call abruptly disconnected. Arabella put her phone down. Harrison slid another document into an envelope. His attorney should receive this within the hour. What is next? Next, find a place to live, get back into the workforce, and do not meet him alone. Keep all communication regarding the child in writing. Arabella nodded. As the two walked out of the conference room, the front desk assistant hurried over. Miss Harrison, there is someone downstairs demanding to see Miss Rowan. Who? The assistant handed over a business card. Vincent Mercer Arabella took the card. On the back, he had scribbled a line, come down in 10 minutes, or I am coming up. Harrison glanced down at it. Do you want to see him? Arabella folded the card in half, then in half again, and tossed it into the trash can. Number down in the lobby, Vincent sat right across from the elevators. 10 minutes passed, 20 minutes passed. Every time the elevator dinged, he looked up. A 30-minute mark, Harrison's assistant came downstairs and set a manila envelope on the table in front of him. Mr. Mercer, this is the emergency petition for a temporary custody schedule filed by Miss Rowan. Vincent didn't take it. The assistant left the envelope and walked away. Through the glass walls of the lobby, Arabella's car pulled out of the underground parking garage and merged onto the street. Vincent stood up abruptly, and the envelope slid off his lap, papers scattered across the floor. On the very top page, Arabella's signature glared back at him. At that exact moment, Arabella's phone chimed with a new email. The sender was Zoe. The subject line had 3 words, "Your wedding video." Arabella opened the attachment. In the video, a 6 years younger Vincent stood in the groomsman's suite, looking at his best friend, Lucas. "Don't file the marriage license," Vincent said. Lucas frowned. "Does Arabella know?" Vincent adjusted his cufflinks, his voice deadpan. "She'll find out eventually." The video wasn't over. Footsteps approached from the hallway. Vincent looked up and added one last sentence. "Once she falls in love with me, she won't care about a piece of paper." When the video hit the final second, Arabella didn't hit replay. She saved the file to the folder her lawyer had requested and tossed her phone onto the passenger seat. The light turned red. A car honked behind her. She looked up, hit the gas, and drove out of the glass and steel business district. Then Lucas' name flashed on the screen. She hit speakerphone. "Arabella," Lucas sounded frantic. "Did you get the video?" "I got it. I can explain." "You filmed it." "It was behind-the-scenes footage from the wedding videographers. They left a backup camera rolling. I found that conversation later and saved a copy." "You saved it for 6 years." A heavy breath came through the line. "I told him to file the paperwork. But you didn't tell me. I thought he'd take care of it eventually." Arabella watched the shifting lanes ahead. Everyone thought he'd take care of it eventually. Lucas fell silent. "I am sorry. How did Zoe get the video?" "She asked me last night what the deal was between you two. ID had too much to drink and let it slip. She forced me to send it to her." Arabella let out a soft laugh. "She's braver than you." Right after the call ended, a text popped up. Vincent had only written one line. "The video isn't what you think." Arabella didn't reply. A few minutes later, he sent another. "Come back right now and I can explain." The third text came much later. "We can still refile the paperwork." Arabella put her phone on silent. She didn't go back to the estate. That night, she checked into a hotel near the airport. The room was small, lone bed, one desk, and a window. She lined her 2 suitcases against the wall, kicked off her shoes, and stepped barefoot onto the carpet. No one was asking what time she'd be home. No one was demanding she prep dinner. No one was using a cup of coffee as a loyalty test. She bought a microwave pasta meal from the vending machine. Halfway through eating it on the edge of the bed, she suddenly smiled. The noodles were as mushy as wet paper, and the sauce was ridiculously sweet. It was the worst meal she'd had in 6 years, and the quietest. The next morning, the front desk sent up a massive floral basket. White roses spilled out of a crystal vase. The card had only Vincent's signature. Arabella pulled the card out and handed it back to the delivery guy. "Leave the flowers in the lobby." The delivery guy blinked. "All of them, all of them." The lobby manager placed the arrangement next to the front desk. By the afternoon, 3 women attending a conference took turns posing with it, and the photos quickly ended up on the hotel's social media. The caption read, "Thanks to an anonymous guest's generosity for making the lobby extra romantic today." Vincent's assistant called half an hour later. "Miss Rowan, Mr. Mercer wanted to know if you received the flowers." "I did. He hopes you understand this is a gesture of reconciliation." The guests in the lobby loved them. The assistant paused for 2 seconds. "Excuse me. Tell him thanks for me." Arabella hung up and grabbed her suitcases. She booked a flight to the Northwest Lake District. As the plane took off, the city shrank into a gray and white chessboard, leaning against the window. She slept for 3 straight hours. When she woke up, endless rolling mountains stretched outside the window. She rented a cabin by the lake. The owner, a silver-haired older woman walking a sheepdog, so fat it had no waist, dropped the keys into her palm. There are eggs and bread in the fridge. Don't stuff too much wood into the fireplace at once. The last tenant almost set the chimney on fire. Arabella looked down at the sheepdog. The dog looked back up at her. What is his name? Henry. He doesn't seem to like me very much. He doesn't like anything he can't eat. The old lady said her piece and walked off. Henry, however, stayed by the door, staring at the paper bag in Arabella's hand. She tore off a small piece of bread. The dog immediately sat down, its tail thumping loudly against the wooden floor. So you do have principles. For the next few days, Arabella slept until she woke up naturally. She took walks by the lake, ate soup and grilled fish at a small diner, and curled up on the couch to watch classic movies all day when it rained. Emails from her lawyer arrived on schedule. Vincent had been formally served. The first mediation session for the temporary custody arrangement was set for 2 weeks away. He rejected the video call schedule suggested by the lawyers. But that very night, he dialed Arabella's number himself. This time, she picked up on screen. Vincent was sitting in his study. His tie was loosened, and the coffee on his desk was untouched. Where are you? Out of town. I am asking for a specific address. You don't need to know. His jaw clenched. Weasley wants to see you. The camera shifted and the child appeared on screen. Wesley was hugging a stuffed dinosaur, his hair sticking up in odd directions. Mommy, Arabella sat up straighter. Hey, baby, when are you coming back? Vincent stood behind their son, his gaze locking onto her face through the screen. Arabella didn't look at him. Mommy will come see you at our scheduled time. Next time we hang out, we can go to the aquarium. Daddy said you are mad. Mommy's not mad at you. Then why aren't you coming home? Arabella gripped her phone. Because Mommy lives somewhere else right now. Weasley frowned. Do you not want Daddy anymore? Vincent's hand rested on the boy's shoulder. Arabella met his eyes. Weasley, that is an adult decision. You don't have to worry about anyone, and you don't have to choose sides. The boy pursed his lips. Can I bring my dinosaur to the aquarium? Of course. Then I want to bring 3. Only 2. Otherwise, Mommy will have to carry them for you all day. Weasley giggled. The hard lines of Vincent's face softened for a split second. Are you done talking? He asked. With Wesley, yes. What about us? Arabella hit the end call button. The next day, she received a proposal from Vincent's lawyer. If she moved back into the estate, Vincent would restore the original weekly visitation. Attorney Harrison's email contained only one line. This is not a negotiation. It is a quid pro quo. Advise rejecting. Arabella replied, reject. Proceed with filing for a fixed schedule. She stayed by the lake for 3 weeks. Before she left, the cabin owner asked where she was heading next. Arabella loaded her last suitcase into the trunk of a cab. Home. The old woman pointed at the cabin. This wasn't it? Arabella looked out at the distant lake. Not quite. She returned to a small riverside town down south. The neighborhood from her childhood had changed. The old grocery store was a flower shop. The movie theater had been converted into a community center. The diner her dad used to frequent was still there. But the sign was faded. Arabella spent 12 days house hunting. The first was beautifully renovated, but had no yard. The second was by the river, but the basement smelled perpetually damp. At the third house, the moment the realtor pushed the door open, a chunk of plaster fell from the ceiling and smashed right by the tip of her shoe. The realtor went pale. That can be fixed. Arabella looked up at the cracked ceiling. What else needs fixing? The backyard fence, the plumbing in the front hall, the banister. And a loud crash came from the kitchen. The realtor snapped his mouth shut. Arabella walked over. A cabinet door was lying on the floor. She crouched down to inspect the loose hinges, and the corners of her mouth slowly curled up. The house was old. The front room faced the street with 2 tall glass windows. The back connected to a small courtyard where a lush magnolia tree grew. The second floor had 3 bedrooms, one of which overlooked the riverbank. I'll take it. The realtor was stunned. Are you sure? Drop the price by another 8%, and I'll sign the letter of intent today. The owner might not go for that. Then tell him the roof, plumbing, and electrical all failed inspection. I'll forward the reports. The realtor looked at her. Were you in real estate before? Number, then how? I used to attend a lot of boring business dinners. 3 days later, the owner accepted the offer. Arabella converted the street, facing front room, into a bookstore. While tearing out the old drywall, the contractors found a yellowed menu and 17 coins hidden in the framing. The foreman dropped the coins into her hand. Good omen. How much are they worth? Probably not even enough for a cup of coffee. Arabella put the coins in a glass jar and set it by the register. Then I'll keep them to remind myself never to make coffee for anyone for free again. On opening day, the bookstore only had 7 customers. 3 were local students, 2 were family members of the contractors, and 1 was an old man asking to use the bathroom. The final customer bought a second-hand cookbook. Arabella tucked her very first receipt inside a notebook. That night, she sat on the floor of her second-story bedroom, surrounded by unpacked boxes. The room had no expensive furniture. The curtains were just temporary white sheets tacked up. The mattress was directly on the floor, with only an old desk lamp next to it. She opened the closet. Her clothes took up less than a quarter of the space. The rest was empty. Arabella stood there for a moment, then walked down the hall to the small room at the end. The walls were painted a warm green, and 2 stuffed dinosaurs sat on the bed. The storybook she had brought from the mansion was on the shelf. The next time Wesley came over, he would have his own room. He wouldn't be crashing. He wouldn't be a visitor. The rain started suddenly at dusk. Droplets battered the bookstore's glass windows as pedestrians scrambled for cover. Arabella was sitting behind the counter editing a novel when she heard the sharp screech of bicycle brakes outside. A tall man hopped off the bike, his uniform jacket completely soaked. He didn't come in right away. Instead, he grabbed a cardboard box from the front basket and shielded it with his body. "Hey, boss," he called from under the awning. "Mind if I duck in for 10 minutes? Come on in." The man looked down at his dripping boots. "I'll track mud on your floor. 2 toddlers spilled juice all over it yesterday. The floor has already lost its dignity." The man chuckled, kicked off his boots, and walked into the shop in his socks. He gently set the cardboard box on the counter. The corners of the box were already wet. Arabella handed him a towel. "What is in there?" "Something I just had repaired." The man wiped the rainwater off his face and looked up. His eyes landed on Arabella's face, and he suddenly froze. Arabella stared back, bewildered. "Do we know each other?" The man didn't answer. He quickly opened the box and pulled a palm-sized ceramic pot from layers of soft cloth. The blue glaze was faded, and there was a freshly mended crack along the rim. Scrawled unevenly on the bottom was a name. Arabella. Arabella's outstretched hand stopped in midair. The man's eyes lit up. It really is you. The rain hammered densely against the glass. He carefully pushed the pot toward her. Arabella Rowan, I've been looking for you for 17 years. Looking for me for 17 years. Arabella looked down at the pot. A chunk of the blue glaze had worn off, and the name on the bottom was so crooked, it looked like it was going to slide right off the edge. It was the first clay piece she had ever made as a kid. Her dad had stood beside her, holding her hand to help her write her name. She remembered how her dad had smeared clay on her nose that day, and how her mom had laughed so hard she doubled over. In the many years since, she had barely thought about this little pot. Where did you find this? Ethan pulled out the chair in front of the counter but didn't sit down right away. His wet socks had left 2 footprints on the wood floor. He glanced down, grabbed the towel, and squatted to wipe them up. For the record, I didn't break into your house and steal it. Usually, anyone who has to explicitly state that is highly suspicious. The man looked up and smiled. Ethan Brooks. He held out his hand, noticed it was still wet with rain, and quickly wiped it on his pants twice. Arabella shook his hand. His palm was rough and very warm. Arabella, I know. You already said that. Right. Ethan let go, the tips of his ears turning slightly red. I rehearsed this a lot of times in my head, but now that I am actually seeing you, my brain is kind of refusing to cooperate. Arabella flipped the pot over. The crack had been filled with a pale gold bonding material, stretching all the way from the base to the rim. She could feel the slight raised texture under her fingers. How did it end up with you? Ethan's smile faded slightly. He sat down at the counter and clasped his hands. Do you remember the mall fire downtown? Arabella's hand froze. Rainwater streamed down the glass, stretching the streetlights across the road into blurry yellow streaks. I remember. Your dad saved me. Ethan spoke slowly. I was trapped in a storage closet on the 3rd floor. The smoke was too thick. I couldn't find the exit. He put his oxygen mask on me and carried me down the hall. Arabella looked at his face. He had a very faint scar near his brow bone, nearly invisible unless you were looking for it. I remember someone calling his name at the stairwell. Later, my parents took me to the firehouse, wanting to thank him in person. He lowered his eyes. We were too late. Arabella set the pot back onto the soft cloth. Ethan pulled an old creased photograph from his jacket pocket. In the picture, several firefighters stood in front of an engine. Arabella's dad was crouching in the front row, holding that very pot. His face was smeared with soot, and he was flashing a brilliant white-toothed grin. It used to sit on his desk, Ethan said. Later, the station packed up his personal belongings for your family. This pot fell out next to a box. Guess nobody noticed it. You took it. My parents wanted to adopt you. Arabella looked up. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. They heard your mom had passed away too, and you were the only kid left. They contacted the agencies. We even had a room set up for you. I didn't know that. Your grandmother took you in pretty quickly. At this, he couldn't help but laugh. I actually cried my eyes out back then. I thought I was getting a little sister, but I never even got to meet you. Little sister. I am a few months older than you. So, you'd just be my brother. 17 years ago, I thought being a few months older was a huge deal. Arabella smiled too. Ethan took the pot back. I saw this left outside your old house. It had a wilted cactus in it. I saw your name on the bottom, so I took it home. How long did the cactus live? Ethan didn't answer. How long? 6 days. Arabella stared at him. What did you do to it? Watered it every day. No wonder. I didn't know cacti don't like water back then. It is not that they don't like water. They just don't like drowning. Ethan coughed. I planted 3 more after that. All dead. The 4th one is still alive. For how long? I just bought it last week. Arabella burst out laughing, resting her arms on the counter. Ethan watched her, the corners of his mouth slowly curling up too. By the time the rain stopped, it was completely dark outside. He pulled on his damp boots and picked up the box. Arabella pressed her hand down on the lid. Leave the pot. You remember it? No, but it has got my name on it. Ethan immediately let go. Of course, he walked to the door, then turned back. Can I come by again? You already delivered the package. I know, but I can buy books. Arabella looked over her mostly empty shelves. What do you like to read? Ethan was quiet for a few seconds. Things with pictures. Kids section is on the left. I know how to read. Then start with the thin ones. The next afternoon, Ethan actually showed up. He bought a mystery novella that was barely 120 pages. The 3rd day, he came back to swap it out. Arabella glanced at the cover. Finished it. The gardener did it. There is no gardener in that book. Ethan clutched the book to his chest. I'll finish it tonight and come back. From then on, he showed up almost every day. The firehouse was only a 10-minute drive away. When he got off early, he'd walk in carrying takeout. Before a night shift, he'd sit in the corner sipping coffee. The first time he tried to use the shop espresso machine, he put the filter in backwards. Coffee grounds oozed out of the edges and all over the counter. Arabella stood by, watching him try to plug the spout with paper towels. Don't plug it, it is leaking, because you put it in backwards. The machine is badly designed. When the espresso machine was invented, they probably didn't have you in mind. Ethan spent half an hour wiping it down. The next day, he hauled in a brand new coffee machine. Arabella blocked the doorway. Take it back. I broke the one yesterday. It is not broken. It makes a weird noise when it sees me. That is it preheating. I think it has a personal vendetta against me. Eventually, the new machine was relocated to the firehouse. Ethan's coworker sent her a photo. 5 firefighters stood around the machine, looking as solemn as a military handover ceremony. Ethan was crouching in front, holding up the instruction manual. Arabella printed the photo and pinned it to the bookstore's message board. When Ethan found it, he stared at it for a solid minute. My reputation is ruined. Did you have one to begin with? He reached up to rip it down. Arabella swatted his hand away. This is an important piece of store history. Then I demand a cut of the profits. I can give you a discount on books. How much? 1% off. Ethan clutched his chest and took a step back. Capitalist. Busyness at the bookstore was still slow, but it was livelier than opening week. The local kids realized it was a quiet place to do homework, and the firehouse guys often dropped by off shift. Ethan took charge of moving bookshelves, changing light bulbs, and scaring away raccoons trying to break into the backyard trash cans. The first time he tried to fix a leaky window, he squeezed an entire tube of sealant all the way around the frame. The window was permanently glued shut. Arabella stood next to him with her arms crossed. Ethan rubbed his nose. At least it won't leak. It won't open either. Very practical for the winter. The next day, he brought his tools and tried again. This time, the window would open, but it wouldn't close. By day 3, Arabella just hired a professional. Ethan sat by the counter all afternoon, refusing to make eye contact with the window. Didn't you say you were good at fixing things? Arabella asked. Fire engines, water pumps, door locks, and windows. It disrespected me. Arabella looked down and laughed. When she was with Vincent, she had never seen him break anything. His clothes were always impeccable, his words precise. Even his anger felt calculated down to the perfect angle. Ethan forgot his keys, mistook salt for sugar, and apologized instantly when he said the wrong thing. He never told Arabella what she should be doing. One day, he saw the legal documents from her lawyer sitting on the counter. Need any help? Number okay? He moved his coffee cup away from the papers and went to sit at another table to read. 10 minutes later, Arabella spoke up herself. Vincent won't agree to a fixed visitation schedule. Ethan closed his book. What does he want? He wants me to move back. Ethan's finger paused on the spine of the book. Are you going to? Arabella looked at him. Number okay. You are not going to ask why. You said no, so it is no. Ethan opened his book again. Arabella didn't look back at her documents. I had a wedding with him once. Ethan slowly looked up. That afternoon, she told him everything. She didn't start with the birthday party. She started with her dad's death, her mom's accident, how terrified her grandmother had been that she'd be left all alone, and how Vincent had shielded her from the storm during that first year. As she went on, her voice leveled out. He wasn't always bad to me. I know. He took care of me too. Yeah, if he was terrible from the start, I wouldn't have stayed for so long. Ethan didn't interrupt. Arabella stared at the wood grain on the counter. Sometimes I wonder if I was just too dense. Ethan pulled out 2 tissues and slid them over to her. You just trusted someone who was good to you. When he stopped being good to me, I still didn't leave. Because you had a kid. And because I kept thinking he would change back into the man he used to be. She crushed the tissues in her hands. Ethan stood up and walked around to her side of the counter. He didn't hug her. He just hovered his hand a few inches above hers. Can I touch you? Arabella nodded. His hand gently covered hers, warm, steady, without applying any pressure. How could they bear to treat you like that? Arabella looked up. Ethan's eyes were red. She stared at him for a second. Are you crying? A tear slipped down from the corner of his eye. Arabella grabbed a tissue and handed it to him. Firefighters cry. It is the smoke. There is no smoke in the bookstore. Your story is pretty smoky. Arabella laughed out loud, but her nose burned with unshed tears. Ethan wiped his eye. I don't pity you. I know. And it is not because your dad saved me that I feel obligated to take care of you either. I know. The bell above the door jingled. They both immediately let go. Attorney Harrison stood in the doorway, a child welfare coordinator right behind her. And behind them was Margaret. She was wearing a sharply tailored, light-colored suit, holding Wesley by the hand. The boy, wearing a dinosaur backpack, stopped in his tracks when he saw Arabella. Mommy. Arabella walked out from behind the counter. Baby. Weasley didn't hug her right away. He looked up at his grandmother, then at Ethan. Who is he? Ethan took a step back. I am the guy who broke the coffee machine. Weasley blinked. Did you get fired? Still on probation. The boy finally cracked a smile. Margaret's eyes swept coldly over Ethan before landing on Arabella. Vincent is in meetings today. As per the temporary arrangement, Wesley can stay here until tomorrow afternoon. Arabella crouched down. Do you want to stay the night? Weasley gripped his backpack straps tightly. Are there dinosaurs here? There are 3 upstairs. Daddy said there were only 2. Mommy bought another one. Weasley thought it over for a few seconds. then held his hand out to her. Arabella took it. His hand was small, the palm soft. Margaret let go of the boy but didn't leave immediately. The stairs here are too steep, and there are no security cameras in the yard. The kitchen outlets look outdated, the wiring past inspection. Weasley tends to kick his blankets off at night. I know. His milk can't be too cold. I know. Margaret pressed her lips into a thin line. Ethan grabbed his jacket from the counter. I'll head out. Weasley turned to him. You don't live here. Nope. Why? Because it is not my house, Ethan answered easily. As he passed Arabella, he didn't touch her, only murmuring, Call me if you need any help. Margaret watched his back but said nothing. That night, Wesley tossed and turned in his own room. Arabella sat by the bed reading him a dinosaur book. By the third page, the boy suddenly asked, Are you going to marry that man? Arabella closed the book. Who told you that? Grandma said. When you get a new family, you won't need me anymore. The sound of a car starting echoed from the street below. Margaret had left barely 10 minutes ago. Arabella set the book on the nightstand. Weasley, look at Mommy. The boy slowly turned his head. Mommy is never going to abandon you just because she likes someone else. And you don't have to love Mommy less just because you love Daddy. But Daddy doesn't like him. Those are Daddy's feelings. It is not your job to fix them. Weasley clutched the edge of his blanket. Why won't you come back? Arabella pulled the covers up to his shoulders. Because when Daddy and Mommy live together, someone is always unhappy. Who? Mommy? The boy's eyelashes fluttered. Is Daddy unhappy too? You'd have to ask Daddy. Are you happier since you left? Arabella looked at him. Happier than I was before. Weasley was quiet for a moment. Then he nudged one of the stuffed dinosaurs against her leg. You can borrow this? Why? So you can hug it while you sleep. Arabella looked down and pulled the dinosaur into her arms. Thank you. The boy let out a yawn. Is the coffee machine guy coming tomorrow? Probably. Can he fix dinosaurs? It is best we don't let him try. The next afternoon, Ethan showed up with a box of donuts. Weasley was in the backyard, lining up his 3 dinosaurs. Seeing Ethan, he immediately ran over. Coffee machine guy! Ethan slipped and almost stepped into the flower bed. Word travels fast, huh? Mommy says you don't know how to fix things. Arabella was leaning against the doorframe. I said we shouldn't let you touch the dinosaurs. Ethan handed the donuts to Wesley. I know how to fix cars. Fire trucks. Normal cars too. Mommy's car makes a noise. Arabella's expression shifted. My car is fine. It went clunk when you turned yesterday. Ethan looked at her. Keys, not necessary. A clunk could be the suspension, or it could just be junk in your trunk. I'll take it to a mechanic. Let me just give it a listen. 10 minutes later, Ethan was lying on the pavement. Half his body slid under her car. Weasley squatted next to him, earnestly handing him tools. Arabella leaned against the doorframe, watching them. Ethan rolled out from under the car, a streak of grease across his cheek. Nothing major, the skid plate was loose. Weasley held up a screwdriver triumphantly. I helped. You supervised. Ethan stood up and wiped his hands. Arabella handed him a wet wipe. How much do I owe you? 1 donut? You bought the donuts, then put it on my tab. Weasley hugged Arabella's leg. Mommy, can I come back next time? She looked down and stroked his hair. You have your own room here. Of course you can. A black sedan pulled up to the curb. Vincent got out. He saw Wesley hugging Arabella first. Then he saw Ethan standing beside her. His expression didn't change, Only the slam of his car door was slightly heavier than usual. "Looks like you are adjusting well." Arabella took Wesley's hand. "You are here to pick him up." Vincent ignored her. His eyes landed on Ethan's grease-streaked face. "Who is this?" Ethan wiped his hand clean and extended it. "Ethan Brooks." Vincent didn't shake it. "Do you come here often?" "Just trying to keep my job lately." Weasley chimed in eagerly, "He is the coffee machine guy." Vincent looked at Arabella. "You let strangers near Wesley. He is not a stranger. A few days makes him not a stranger." Ethan pulled his hand back. "You can dislike me, but don't interrogate her in front of the kid." Vincent finally looked him dead in the eye. "This is family business. Then take it away from the kid." Weasley's fingers tightened inside Arabella's palm. She crouched down and adjusted his backpack. "Go wait for Daddy in the car, okay?" The boy looked between the three adults. "Are you going to come pick me up, Mommy?" "According to the schedule. I'll pick you up next Friday." "You won't cancel." "I won't." Weasley nodded and ran to the car. Once the car door shut, Vincent took a step forward. "You bring him to a place like this, and you let a man of unknown origins stay the night with him. Ethan didn't stay the night. You better remember, the custody arrangement hasn't been finalized." Arabella pulled out her phone. "Do you want me to forward this threat to my lawyer?" Vincent's jaw clenched tight. "I am reminding you, thanks. Consider me reminded." She turned and walked toward the bookstore. Vincent grabbed her wrist. Ethan's hand clamped down on his arm instantly. All three of them froze. "Let her go," Ethan said. His voice was low. Vincent stared at Ethan's hand. Arabella pulled her wrist free. "Ethan, let go." Ethan released him immediately and stepped back. Vincent adjusted his cuff. "You think finding a fireman proves you are doing perfectly fine on your own?" Arabella looked at him. "I have nothing to prove to you. Weasley called me last night, said he wanted to stay here." Vincent's voice darkened. "Are you satisfied now? He just wanted to spend another day with his mother. He never brought it up before, because you never allowed it." Vincent's eyes went ice cold for a second. A ringtone suddenly blared from Ethan's jacket. He answered the call, and all trace of levity vanished from his face. "Brooks." The person on the other end spoke quickly. Ethan sprinted into the shop, grabbing his uniform jacket off the back of a chair. "Warehouse fire in the West End." He shrugged it on as he sprinted out the door. Arabella chased him 2 steps. "Is it dangerous?" Ethan paused. Sirens could already be heard wailing at the end of the street. He looked back at her and gave her a quick thumbs up against his chest. "I'll call you later." Fire engines roared past the intersection. Ethan ran to his truck. Arabella stood on the damp street, watching his taillights disappear into the night. Vincent had already driven off with Wesley. The bookstore fell silent again. By 8 p.m., Ethan hadn't called. At 9 p.m., the warehouse fire was upgraded to a higher alarm. At 10:15 p.m., the local news broadcast live footage from the scene. Thick black smoke swallowed half the sky, and multiple ambulances idled behind police tape. A reporter stood in front of the camera while firefighters loaded a stretcher in the background. Arabella rewound the video. In the bottom right corner of the frame, a stretcher was being hurriedly pushed into an ambulance. Dropped on the ground next to it was a soot-stained helmet. Written on the side was a name. Brooks. Arabella grabbed her keys and bolted out of the bookstore. She didn't lock the door. The lamp on the counter was still on. The computer screen frozen on that news clip. By the time she sped to the West End, 2 perimeters of police tape were already up around the facility. The air reeked of burnt plastic, and red and blue lights sliced through the heavy smoke. Reporters, onlookers, and evacuated workers crowded the opposite side of the street. Arabella parked 3 blocks away and sprinted to the police line. "You can't go in there," an officer said, holding up a hand to stop her. "Where is Ethan Brooks?" "Ma'am, step back." His helmet was next to the stretcher. The officer gave her a sympathetic look. "Injured personnel have already been transported to the hospital." Arabella's fingertips went ice cold. "Which hospital? I don't have a list." She pulled out her phone and dialed Ethan's number voicemail. She dialed again, still voicemail. Firefighters were trickling out of the warehouse's side doors. Some were supporting leaning teammates, others were pulling off their masks and hacking up soot, and a few just collapsed onto the curb to be checked by paramedics. Arabella stood on her tiptoes, scanning every ash-covered face. No Ethan. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and it drove off, sirens blaring. She chased after it for 2 steps before her heel slipped on the wet asphalt. Her knees slammed hard into the ground. Summoning reached out to help her up. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Arabella pushed herself off the ground, her knees burning. "Where is Brooks?" The firefighter blinked. "Which Brooks?" "Ethan." "He is," a shout echoed from the direction of the warehouse. A few more firefighters emerged from the smoke, carrying heavy equipment. The last man pulled off his mask and bent over to set his oxygen tank on the ground. Arabella caught his profile. "Ethan." The man snapped his head up. Arabella shoved past the crowd, ducked under the edge of the police tape, and squeezed between 2 fire engines. Ethan had barely held out his arms before she crashed into his chest. He stumbled back a half step, his arms immediately locking around her. "What are you doing here?" Arabella gripped the back of his heavy turnout coat. "Your helmet was next to the ambulance." A beam came down inside, knocked it right off. The stretcher, another guy on the squad. Smoke inhalation. "He is stable." Arabella reached up to touch his face, her thumb smearing a layer of soot. "Why didn't you answer your phone?" "Phone's in the truck." "You said you'd call me." "I literally just walked out." His voice broke off. Arabella's tears were falling onto his jacket, quickly bleeding into a dark stain on the thick fabric. Ethan looked down. "Did I scare you?" She punched him hard in the chest. Ethan grunted, grabbing his ribs. Arabella instantly let go, horrified. "Are you hurt?" "Number," he sucked in a breath. "You just pack a serious punch." "Serves you right." She was crying and panting at the same time, her shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Ethan cupped her face in his hands. "Look at me." Arabella raised her tear-filled eyes. His eyelashes were clumped with moisture, the corners of his eyes bloodshot from the smoke. "I am okay," she bit her lip, and gave a single nod. Ethan's thumb wiped a tear from her cheek. "Can I take your reaction just now to mean you actually care about me?" Arabella stared at him. A few feet away, a firefighter let out a loud wolf whistle. Another guy immediately dragged him away. Ethan didn't look back. His eyes never left hers. "Can I?" "You have to ask right now." "I am afraid if I wait until I get home, I'll lose my nerve." "You run into burning warehouses, but you lose your nerve." "That is different." "How is it different?" "The fire doesn't reject me." Arabella's tears fell again, but the corners of her mouth curled up. "Yes." Ethan's hands froze. "What?" "I care about you." The sirens, the shouting, the crackle of the radios all blurred into the background. Arabella grabbed the lapels of his jacket. "When I can't see you, I worry. When you don't pick up the phone, I spiral. When that ambulance drove away just now, I forgot how to breathe." Ethan's eyes lit up, brighter by the second. Arabella's stopped smiling. I can't help it. Your teeth are too white. Occupational requirements. Since when do firefighters have dental requirements? Since right now. He leaned down and kissed her. The kiss was soft. His lips tasted like ash and the faint salt of sweat. More whistles echoed around them, and this time the entire squad joined in on the heckling. Arabella stepped back. Ethan's ears were bright red, but he didn't let her go. So what does that make us? Weren't you acting so brave a second ago? Fresh out of courage. Arabella looked at the soot on his uniform. Boyfriend. Ethan smiled like he had just hauled a chest of gold out of a burning building. Say it again. Don't push your luck. Okay, he leaned in and kissed her again. Girlfriend, over the next few months, Ethan kept showing up at the bookstore every day. The only difference was that before, he'd walk in and buy a book. Now, he'd walk in, kiss Arabella, and then pretend to study the shelves to figure out which book to buy. The second time Wesley came to the shop, he saw Ethan walk out of the kitchen carrying a tray of bizarrely shaped cookies. What are those? Dinosaurs. Weasley squinted at one of them. Why does this one have 8 legs? He is a fast runner. That is a spider, a prehistoric spider. Arabella walked up behind him and confiscated the baking sheet. Stop poisoning my child. Weasley took a bite, and his little brow furrowed. Ethan watched him nervously. How is it? The boy chewed for a while. A little hard. Is it edible? Weasley took another bite. You can dunk it in milk. From that day on, Ethan's cookies were officially dubbed Firehouse Bricks. Every time the fire crew visited the shop, they demanded a bag to take back, claiming they could be used to smash windows in an emergency. Arabella and Vincent's first formal mediation was scheduled in early winter. In the conference room, Vincent sat at the far end of the long table. He looked thinner than the last time she'd seen him, with dark circles bruised under his eyes. It is not good for Wesley to constantly shuttle between 2 cities, his lawyer argued. Harrison opened her planner. Miss Rowan has already agreed to cover the majority of the transportation and proposed extending visitation during winter and summer holidays. Vincent looked directly at Arabella. You could just move back. I can't. Not even for your son. Arabella slid a psychological evaluation across the center of the table. The child welfare coordinator determined that a stable, fixed routine is much better for his development than a schedule that can be canceled on a whim. I didn't cancel on a whim. Harrison calmly laid out 2 years' worth of records, exactly 27 times. Vincent didn't speak again. The final agreement was cemented. Arabella got fixed weekends, alternating holidays, and daily video calls. Neither party was allowed to cancel arrangements due to personal disputes, and neither was allowed to badmouth the other in front of Wesley. When it came time to sign, Vincent's pen hovered over the paper. Are you really never coming back? Arabella signed her name and set the pen down. We're only here today to talk about Wesley. Vincent looked up at her. Her phone screen lit up on the table. It was a photo from Ethan. He and Wesley were standing in the bookstore's backyard, trying to hang string lights on the magnolia tree. They had managed to tangle themselves in a massive knot of wires, while a stray cat, who knew where it came from, sat by their feet watching them. The caption read, "We've taken the tree hostage. Need professional backup." Arabella locked her screen, but the smile lingered on her lips. Vincent saw it. His knuckles turned white around his pen. When spring arrived, Ethan proposed in the backyard of the bookstore. There were no guests, no floral arches, no photographer hiding behind a tree. When he got down on one knee, He sank right into the freshly watered soil. His jeans were instantly soaked in mud. Arabella looked down at him. "Did you pick the wrong spot? I originally planned to do this standing up." "Then why are you kneeling?" "I am nervous. My legs gave out." He opened the ring box. The ring was simple, with a modest diamond in the center. "I don't have a family estate, and I don't have a chauffeur. I am an average cook. I am terrible at fixing windows, and I've only managed to keep a cactus alive for 4 months. 3 months and 26 days. How do you know that? I check it for you every day." "No wonder it is still alive." Ethan took a deep breath. "Arabella, I will never ask you to give up your bookstore, and I will never dictate how you should be a mother. You get to keep your own bank accounts, your own house, and all your exit strategies." He looked up at her. "I just want to know if there is a place for me in your future." Arabella held out her left hand. Ethan froze. "Is that a yes? If you don't put it on right now, I am going to change my mind." He fumbled to get the ring out, nearly dropping it into the mud. Arabella caught it midair. "Let me just do it myself." "You can't put on your own engagement ring." "Is that a law?" "It is a Brooks family rule." He took her hand, and this time slid the ring steadily down to the base of her finger. They didn't hold a wedding ceremony right away. First, they went to the courthouse to file their marriage certificate. When the clerk slid the paperwork across the counter, Arabella's pen hovered over the signature line. 6 years ago, she had stood in a grand hall full of guests in an expensive gown, entirely unaware of whether this piece of paper had ever been filed. Ethan stood beside her, not rushing her. "It is not too late to change your mind." Arabella looked at him. "Do you want to change your mind?" "I am terrified you do." She picked up the pen. "Then, let's be terrified together." They signed their names at the exact same time. Back at the bookstore, Ethan pulled 2 folders out of his backpack. "These are my bank statements, insurance policies, retirement accounts, and mortgage details." Arabella opened the first page. "You still owe money on your car? 18 more months. Didn't you say you didn't have any secrets? It is not a secret. It is a mark of shame." "What is the interest rate?" Ethan quoted a number. Arabella looked up. "That is shameful, which is why I need a smart wife. Don't try to dress up your debt as a compliment." They agreed to keep their separate accounts while opening a joint one for household expenses. Ethan made the first deposit. The memo read, "Cactus Emergency Fund." Arabella was just about to edit the memo when the doorbell rang. Assuming Wesley was arriving early, she walked over with a smile. She opened the door. Vincent stood at the bottom of the steps. Wesley wore his backpack, holding his father's hand. Vincent's gaze bypassed Arabella, landing squarely on the marriage documents sitting on the table behind Ethan. Then it slowly shifted to the ring on her left hand. His face was completely devoid of expression. Wesley, however, dropped his dad's hand and launched himself at Arabella. "Mommy!" Arabella bent down and caught him. "You guys are early." Vincent didn't answer. He stepped inside, staring at the 2 matching certificates lying side by side on the table. "What is this?" Ethan closed the folders. "Our marriage certificate." Vincent looked at Arabella. "You're what?" Arabella stood up straight. "Husband." The word husband dropped into the room like a lead weight. Vincent's hand was still gripping the door handle. Wesley had already run past them into the shop, tossing his backpack by the register and making a beeline for his 3 dinosaurs. Ethan put the paperwork away and poured the boy a glass of warm milk. Vincent stood rooted to the spot. He didn't look at Ethan. His eyes remained fixed on Arabella's ring. "When did you register, Tode?" How long have you known him? Long enough. Vincent let out a harsh scoff and stepped further into the room. 6 months. He looked around. The first floor shelves were packed tight. Mismatched tables and chairs sat by the window. The message board by the counter was covered in kids' drawings, sticky notes from readers, and a photo of Ethan surrounded by 5 firefighters looking at a coffee machine. You married a man you've known for 6 months, but you spent 6 years harassing me over a piece of paper. Arabella closed the door. I never harassed you. How many times did you ask? I asked. Isn't that harassing? Ethan handed Wesley the milk, not turning around. Arabella looked at Vincent calmly. I asked once when I was pregnant. I asked once after Wesley was born. And after my grandmother died, I begged you. Vincent's Adam's apple bobbed. I was just. You refused. I never said I'd never do it. You told me to wait. Arabella picked up Wesley's jacket from the floor and hung it by the door. I waited for 6 years. Vincent's eyes tracked her movements. So you just found a random guy to marry to get back at me? Wesley, mid-sip of his milk, looked up. Ethan smoothly took the empty glass from the boy's hand. Got a new dinosaur puzzle upstairs. How many pieces? 100. I can do that. I need your help. Wesley immediately followed him up the stairs. As he passed Vincent, the boy stopped. Daddy, don't yell at Mommy. Vincent's face stiffened. We're not fighting. Wesley studied his dad's face. Whenever you say you are not, it means you are. The boy jogged up the stairs after Ethan Once. The footsteps faded. Vincent loosened his tie with a sharp tug. He teaches my son to talk to me like that. Wesley has his own eyes. Arabella, I am not here today to argue with you about this. Then why are you here? Vincent reached into his inner suit pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. He placed the document on the table. It was a fully completed marriage license application. At the top, the names Vincent Mercer and Arabella Rowan were printed clearly. Arabella looked down at it. His signature was already on the groom's line. Annul the marriage with him. Vincent's voice softened slightly. I'll handle the fallout. We can file this immediately. Arabella didn't touch the paper. Did you know I was married when you filled this out? I found out this afternoon. Then when were you originally planning to give this to me? After I brought you home. And if I didn't go back? Vincent's jaw tightened. You would have. Arabella let out a soft laugh. Vincent stared at her smile, his eyes growing darker. You are still so confident, she said. You loved me. I did. The answer came so quickly that Vincent was the one taken aback. Arabella pushed the document back toward him. I loved you when I waited for you at the hospital. I loved you the day we buried my grandmother, when I fell to my knees and begged you to let me keep Wesley. Her fingers left the paper. You took Wesley away. You used him to force me to attend your dinners, and I still loved you. Vincent's lips parted. I just wanted you to submit. Then what was it? Vincent had no answer. From upstairs came the clatter of a puzzle box spilling over. Wesley yelled, Ethan, you put the tail on backwards. Maybe it is growing forwards. Dinosaurs don't work like that. Arabella glanced up at the ceiling. Vincent heard it too. He looked toward the stairs, his voice dropping into a dangerous register. He is playing father now. He is helping Wesley with a puzzle. That is my place. Nobody took your place. Arabella opened the drawer under the register and pulled out a printed custody schedule. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., I will drop Wesley back off. As agreed, your video call next Wednesday remains unchanged. You are still his father. And what about you? I am his mother. I am talking about us. All we have left is co-parenting? Vincent snatched the document off the table. His grip so tight the paper crinkled. Zoe left the company. Arabella didn't react. Nothing happened between us like you think. It doesn't matter. She was just a PR consultant. I only brought her that night because... He cut himself off. Arabella waited 2 seconds. Because you wanted to see me jealous. Vincent looked away. She pressed further. Did you want to see me cry, or did you want to see me beg? I just wanted a reaction out of you. I made your coffee every morning. I memorized your schedule. I left a light on for you when you came home at 3 a.m. Did none of that register? That is different. You are right, it is. Arabella folded his marriage application and shoved it back into his envelope. None of that gave you the thrill of control. Vincent planted his palms on the edge of the table. I know I messed up. When the words finally came out, his voice was barely a whisper. For the first time ever, Arabella saw a foreign panic on his face. His collar was slightly crooked. His eyes were bloodshot. There was a faint coffee stain on his cuff. The old Vincent would have sooner died than let anyone see him like this. I admit it. At first, I treated you well, so you would rely on me. He spoke, agonizingly slow. I hated that our marriage felt like a family obligation. I wanted to prove I was the one in control, that I could decide when it started and when it ended. Arabella stood behind the counter, letting him speak. But then you actually fell in love with me. And I got scared. Scared of what? Scared that I loved you too. His knuckles pressed white against the wood. I didn't want to admit I had actively chosen you, because admitting that meant nobody forced me into it. It meant I walked into it willingly. Arabella looked at him. 6 years ago, Vincent had stood in the garage, shielding her head with his hand as she got into the car. He had said he agreed to the wedding because she looked like she was about to cry. It wasn't pity, after all. It was just the truth he had refused to admit until right now. Arabella. Vincent took a step forward. Come home with me. Where do you want me to go back to? Home. There are none of my books in that house. My job isn't there. Wesley's bed isn't there. I'll have the house redesigned. I have exactly 1 shelf in that closet. I'll give you the entire walk-in. When I begged you to let me bring Wesley home, you said the main estate was better for him. I'll go pick him up right now. Arabella's finger lightly tapped the glass jar sitting on the counter. Inside sat the 17 tarnished coins she had found in the walls. The sharp clink of metal echoed between them. So it was always possible. Vincent went completely pale. What filing the paperwork was possible. Bringing Wesley home was possible. Firing Zoe was possible. Arabella met his eyes. It is not that you couldn't do it before. You just chose not to. Vincent's breath hitched. I was wrong. You were. I'll make it up to you how. Whatever you want, name it. I already have everything I want. Vincent glared toward the staircase. What, this dump of a bookstore and a fireman? I have a life where I don't have to study your mood to know what I am allowed to do tomorrow. Footsteps pounded down the stairs. Ethan walked down, holding Wesley's hand. The boy was holding up a mangled puzzle piece. Mommy, the head is attached to the tail. Who did that? Weasley pointed at Ethan. Ethan coughed. The instructions were printed backwards. The dinosaur on the box is normal? Then maybe I was holding it upside down. Arabella took the puzzle from him. Wesley leaned against her leg and noticed the manila envelope on the counter. What is that? Vincent instantly snatched it up. Work documents. Weasley nodded. Daddy, are you sleeping here tonight? Vincent looked down at his son. Do you want me to stay? Weasley scratched his head. There is only Mommy's room, my room, and Ethan's room upstairs. The air in the room stalled. Ethan immediately clarified. I don't live here. Weasley turned to him. You are married. Why don't you live together? I haven't moved in yet. Why? Ethan looked at Arabella. I have to get your mom's permission first. Weasley clearly couldn't grasp the concept of adult boundaries. Daddy never had to ask. Arabella knelt down and adjusted the boy's collar. That is why Mommy makes people ask now. Weasley nodded, half understanding. Vincent gripped the envelope. I'll wait outside. For what? After I drop Wesley off, you and I are going to talk alone. It is not your scheduled pickup time. I am his father. The agreement says tomorrow at 5 p.m. Vincent looked down at Wesley. Do you want to come home with Daddy? Weasley hugged his mutant dinosaur tight. I haven't gotten to sleep at Mommy's house yet. You can do it next time. But Mommy promised. Vincent's hand hovered in midair. Arabella didn't answer for the boy. A few seconds later, Vincent slowly pulled his hand back. Tomorrow at 5 p.m., I'll be on time. He walked to the door, then stopped. Arabella, she didn't turn around. What if I had admitted it sooner? Arabella was busy dismantling Wesley's puzzle. She popped the backwards head off and snapped it into the correct spot. There are no what-ifs. The door clicked shut. The black sedan idled outside the bookstore for a long time before finally pulling away. That night, Ethan didn't stay. He helped Wesley finish the dinosaur puzzle, then packed up the mess of pieces he had scattered everywhere. Before he left, he stood by the door, jacket in hand. Are you okay? I am fine. What did he bring? A marriage application. Ethan's grip on his jacket tightened. You didn't sign it. I already signed a different one. Arabella lifted her left hand. The ring caught the porch light and gleamed. Ethan looked down and smiled. I know. Then why were you so tense? He is richer than me, he talks better than me, and his tie was perfectly straight. You know how to bake firehouse bricks. Suddenly, I feel much more confident. Arabella reached out, grabbed his collar, and kissed him lightly on the lips. Go home and sleep. Ethan didn't move. One more. Number so cold on our first day of marriage. If you don't leave right now, I am making you fix the window. He immediately backed down the steps. Good night. A week later, Vincent started appearing around the bookstore far more frequently. Sometimes it was to drop off or pick up Wesley. Sometimes he just stood across. He never barged in again, and he stopped sending flowers one afternoon. Zoe walked into the shop. She had chopped her hair short and was wearing a simple black trench coat. Arabella poured her a cup of coffee. Zoe looked at the mug with an awkward smile. Should I not have ordered this? You didn't demand I make it this time. I can make it myself. For the safety of the machine, I'd rather you didn't. Zoe took a sip. Definitely better than the one at the party. She pulled a flash drive out of her purse. This is all my work correspondence with Vincent, plus the emails where he instructed me on the seating arrangements for that party. Arabella didn't take it. My lawyer doesn't need any more evidence. It is not for the lawsuit. Zoe set the drive on the table. He told me you were emotionally unstable, that you refused to accept the breakup, and that you used your kid to spy on him. I believed him. She traced the rim of the mug. Because believing him was convenient for me. Arabella sat down across from her. Zoe looked up. I owe you an apology. You were lied to that night, too. But I still walked into the trap. Just don't walk into the same room again. Zoe smiled. I won't, before leaving. She bought a novel off the shelf about starting over. Arabella didn't give her a discount. "You really are a capitalist," Zoe said. "The bookstore needs to survive. Fair enough." In late spring, Arabella and Ethan hosted their wedding reception in the bookstore's backyard. There was no grand ballroom. Warm yellow string lights were draped through the branches of the magnolia tree. The fire squad hauled in long wooden tables, and local students helped tape handwritten menus to the brick walls. Attorney Harrison sat in the front row. The old woman from the lake cabin brought her fat dog, Henry, who managed to steal half a plate of cupcakes before being apprehended by Wesley. Wesley, wearing a slightly oversized little suit, was assigned the role of ring bearer. Halfway down the aisle, he got distracted by some flower petals on the ground and squatted down to collect 3 of them. The officiant waited for 30 seconds. Ethan Stage whispered, "Weasley." The boy looked up. "Coming." He sprinted up to the altar and held up the ring box. "I didn't lose them." "Great job," Arabella said. Ethan opened the box. There was only 1 ring inside. Everyone stared at Wesley. The boy patted his pockets. From the left pocket, he produced a plastic dinosaur. From the right pocket, he pulled out 2 cookies. Finally, he dug into his sock and fished out the missing wedding band. "It is safer down here." The backyard erupted in laughter. Ethan took the ring, meticulously polished it on his shirt 3 times, and slid it onto Arabella's finger. When it was time for vows, Ethan pulled out a folded piece of paper. A gust of wind snatched it right out of his hand, blowing it high into the magnolia branches. Vaughn of the firefighters instantly went for a ladder. Arabella grabbed Ethan's arm. "Don't worry about it. I spent all night writing that." "How much do you remember?" Ethan looked at her. "Absolutely nothing." "Then say whatever you remember right now." He took both of her hands. "I remember that you drink your iced tea with a tiny bit of sugar. I know you won't eat squid, and I know that when you are angry, you wipe the same coffee cup 3 times. Low chuckles rippled through the guests. "I remember that you don't need me to save you." Ethan's voice caught for a second. "But wherever you end up going, I just want to walk beside you." Arabella's eyes burned. She didn't look away. "I used to mistake endurance for love and fear for responsibility." She glanced at the front row, where Wesley was actively trying to prevent Henry from raiding a 3rd plate of cake. "Now I have a bookstore. I have my own keys, and I have a man who has absolutely no idea how to fix a window." Ethan laughed. Arabella laughed with him. "I love you, Ethan." Outside the backyard gate, a black sedan sat quietly at the curb. Vincent was in the driver's seat. The warm glow of the string lights spilled through the gaps in the wooden fence, casting shadows across his face. He watched Ethan lean down and kiss Arabella. He watched Arabella tilt her head up, her arms wrapping tight around his neck. At their wedding 6 years ago, she had also worn a white dress. Back then, she had spent the entire night waiting for him to look at her. Today, she never once glanced toward the gate. Vincent looked down at the manila envelope on the passenger seat. The marriage application had long since expired. The line for Arabella Rowan remained agonizingly blank. He shoved the envelope into the glove compartment. The backyard erupted in applause. Wesley grabbed 2 handfuls of petals and sprinted toward the newlyweds, chucking them directly at Ethan's head. Arabella bent over, laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. Vincent started the engine. The headlights swept past the wooden fence. Not a single person turned around to look. After the wedding wrapped up, Arabella stood at the door of the bookstore, saying goodbye to the last guest. Ethan carried the mended blue pot in from the backyard. Inside, the tiny cactus stood straight and green. "This is the fifth one," he said. Arabella checked the dry soil. "How long since you watered it?" 12 days. You finally learned. I figured out that too much water just kills it. Arabella took the pot from him and set it dead center on the windowsill. Under the warm glow of the reading lamp, the golden veins of the repaired crack were starkly visible. It wasn't hidden away. It wasn't painted over with fresh glaze to pretend it had never been broken. Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind, leaving it here, right here. Through the glass, the streetlights illuminated the plastic dinosaur Wesley had left on the table, standing slightly lopsided. Upstairs, the lights in all 3 bedrooms were on. Arabella locked the front door of the bookstore and slipped the key into her pocket. This time, no one was deciding for her whether she should stay or leave. She took Ethan's hand, and together, they walked up the stairs. Vincent's cruelty has a very specific texture. It isn't loud. It wears a silver gray tie and speaks in a measured voice, and always has a reasonable explanation. The baby should stay at the estate because the nannies are more professional. The marriage license can wait until after the birth. The visitation gets canceled because she refused to attend a dinner while running a fever. Each decision, individually, sounds almost defensible. Stack them over 6 years, and what emerges is not a marriage, but a hostage negotiation conducted in Kashmir. Wesley was the leverage. Vincent understood, with the cold precision of a man who runs companies, that a mother's love is the most exploitable resource on earth. Every time Arabella pushed back, he adjusted the terms of access to her own child. Not dramatically, not violently, just a skipped weekend here, a rescheduled visit there. A quiet reminder that compliance purchased proximity. And the marriage license is the architectural keystone of the entire scheme. He told Lucas on his wedding day, not to file the paperwork. Then he spent 6 years letting Arabella believe she was his wife while ensuring she had no legal standing to prove it. Every time she asked, he deflected. Every time she begged, he reframed it as drama. He kept her in a ceremony without a contract, a home without a shelf, a closet without space. The coffee scene is not about coffee. It is about Vincent testing, in front of 36 witnesses, whether his control system still functions. He brings another woman to a party, places his hand on her waist, and then orders his wife to serve them both. He isn't being cruel for cruelty's sake. He is running a diagnostic. Will she still perform? Will the machine still respond? Arabella walks into the pantry, past the espresso machine, through the kitchen, out the garden door, and into an Uber with bleeding heels and cheap flats from a convenience store. The machine has stopped responding. What follows is not revenge. It is reconstruction, a lawyer, a custody petition, a flight to a lake cabin with a fat dog named Henry, a fixer-upper with a cracked ceiling and a magnolia tree in the yard, a bookstore with 7 customers on opening day, a jar of 17 worthless coins on the counter to remind herself never to make coffee for free again. And then a man who puts the filter in backwards, glues a window shut, bakes cookies with 8 legs, and asks permission before touching her hand. Ethan is not Vincent's opposite because he is kind. He is Vincent's opposite because he is legible. Every feeling is visible. Every intention is stated. He cries during her story and calls it smoke. He proposes in mud and admits his legs gave out from nerves. He hands over his bank statements on day 1, including the shameful car loan, because he understands that transparency is not weakness. It is the foundation Vincent never bothered to pour. Vincent's final confession, that he was scared of admitting he had chosen Arabella willingly, is the most honest thing he says in the entire story. And it changes nothing, because the moment a man admits that every act of control was actually a defense against his own feelings, he is not offering an apology. He is offering a biography. And a biography is not a repair. The mended pot on the windowsill is the final image. And it is the right one. Gold filling the crack. Not hidden, not painted over, just held together differently than before. So here is my question tonight. When someone kept you close by keeping you uncertain, not with cruelty you could name, but with reasonable explanations, you couldn't quite argue against, how long did it take you to recognize the pattern? Was there a single moment the system became visible? A coffee cup, a canceled weekend, a closet with no space? What was the small thing that finally made you walk past the espresso machine and out the back door? I'll be in the comments.